Hey everybody, Mr. Eric here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a comparison between a couple of pretty highly recommended mobile, portable, kind of portable DAC amps. So today we're going to be comparing the iDSD Micro Black Label, something like that, versus the Chord Mojo. So let's take a quick look at these units and then we'll talk about how they sound. So first of all, these are both extremely nice devices, well built, they feel good, they feel solid, they have great reputations, right? So you kind of know what you're getting with these. But as far as just design and feel go, the Mojo is just I don't know, it's unique, it's extremely high quality, feels super sturdy and solid. I wouldn't call it a simple design, but well, yeah, I guess I would call it a simple design, but it's a unique design, unique and simple at the same time. So it's not something that's typical, but at the same time, it's not like a really complicated design. When we turn on the Mojo, we get lights that come on, and these kind of control and show us various different things about the unit here. Volume is 1, which we use these two kind of bottom marbles to go back and forth. And you can see how the color is changing as we do this. Now, I like this, but I wish the colors, I like this feature, and I think it's cool. I think it looks really cool. My one problem with it that I don't quite understand is the lights kind of like, they cycle. So once you go so far, they kind of like repeat themselves. And what this means is that a specific color doesn't necessarily mean a specific volume. You can see how I'm just keep going down and it just keeps changing. So to a certain extent it looks like it does because they shut off there eventually, but like blue doesn't necessarily mean low volume, which is kind of a weird thing. Now, this other orb isn't glowing right now, and that's because we don't have a source plugged in. If we plug a source in, this tells us what format it's reading. And again, that's kind of a cool feature. The one problem with all this is that you don't really know unless you look up the information on the Mojo. So that's kind of my feel for the Mojo. Is like, I think it's cool, it functions well, and it all works the way it should. It's just not like, you just don't really know what you're doing unless you spend some time with it and dig into it. It's not like instantly knowable, which I kind of prefer, and that's really how the Micro is. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. Other things that you need to know about the Mojo: you've got a coax in, you've got USB information cable, and then you've got a USB charging. These are separate, and you've obviously got an optical in. On the other side, one thing that's kind of interesting is you got 2 headphone outputs. These are always on, and you know, as far as I can tell, there isn't a difference between them. So yeah, I like it. It's got a lot of functionality. It does always run off of battery, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you want to use this like permanently at a desk, you can do that and it will stay on and it'll trickle charge and things like that. But I have heard some things that maybe that doesn't always work the way it should. Again, so I've never just used it at my desk and had it plugged in for a long amount of time. It can be used as as just like a DAC, where you do kind of a more subdued line level out. And so to do that, I just put it into that mode, and you know that because that light was blue, and that's just simply you hold all the buttons at once to turn it on and off. And then if you just turn it on regularly, the next time it'll just start up as normal and go back to normal mode. So it worked fine, no issues there. A lot of people don't like to run their DACs that way. They just think it's like preamping. I didn't find a problem with it. When I used it that way, I thought it sounded just fine. So let's take a look at the iFi Micro now, and I just have to say that this is really kind of speaking more my design language, in that really it's functional, like it's function. I mean, it's all well made and feels nice, but there's just toggles, you know, volume, pot, like everything, you know where everything is and what all the settings are, and I really like that. I like just being able to look at my thing and I know it. I can just read it on the device and I don't need to, you know, pull out an instruction manual to understand what modes it's in. And that's a good thing for the Black Label, because this thing's got a lot of modes and it's got a lot going on. So it's going to take a moment for us to kind of dig through that here. So let's take a look here at what is going on this device. So first off, you know, I really like just like the oblong shape of this. It's smaller than you think. Here's a Modi by comparison, right? So it's not a huge device. It is about twice the size of the Mojo. So, but most things are more of like a square or like a squatty rectangle. I really like just this long, skinny design of this thing. I don't know what it is about it exactly. I just like it. It feels sturdy. I mean, it doesn't feel as sturdy as the Mojo, but nothing feels as sturdy as the Mojo does. So on the front, let's take a look at what you got. We got 1/4 inch. We've got a 3.5 input. We've got the volume knob, which the on-off switch is built in, and there's kind of a trick to like whether you want this to draw power from your device or not, or whether you want this device to draw power from your phone or whatever, is kind of like the sequence in which you plug things in. So that's just something to keep in mind. On the front, you've also got the 3D plus mode, which is like it adds some kind of spatial cues. I never used it that much and didn't find it too noticeably different when I did. This other toggle is for X bass, which if you've heard about Hi-Fi, you've probably heard about this. Some people really love it. It's supposed to add, you know, a nice chunk of bass to your headphones without, you know, really messing with it with DSP. It's like an analog bass boost is my understanding of it. It works fine. I'm not a huge bass head, so I didn't really use it all that much, but it does noticeably add bass, of course. So I think if you're into that, that's a nice feature to have. On the side here, again, we're going to have to even just flip it over. You can see everything that's going on here. It's all labeled well. You've got IE match. You've got different filter modes. You've got polarity. You've got power mode, eco, normal, turbo. And this is really the only thing that I used a whole lot. Basically, eco mode, you're not putting out as much power, normal, and then you go up, right? To turbo is when you're really getting the full power of this thing, which is cool. I like that you can kind of choose your setting and save battery if you don't need all that power. Preamplifier, direct output. Those are whether or not, you know, the volume is controlling things back there when you're putting stuff out. On the back, let me remove these caps real fast here. You got RCA outs and you got SPDIF in and out as well. This is your USB in, so that's kind of an interesting system where, you know, you're going to use a dongle like this, plugs right in like that. You know, it works okay. You can get something like this Amazon Basics, it's just like a USB-A extension cable, and then this effectively becomes, you know, like a data and power cable, and that works good if you're going to use it at a desk. The other cool thing here is you'll notice there's another USB socket on the side. This one actually allows you to use the micro to charge, you know, another device, so your phone or something like that, if you need to, which again is kind of an interesting feature and cool. Like, so this thing is just features, and I can appreciate that. So it's really cool that this thing comes with all these features and stuff packed into it, but I didn't really use many of those features, so not a huge selling point for me. I'm more into just like the use, the function of it for just basic listening, and of course the sound quality. So let me just talk just super fast here about like dongles and things like that. You know, it's really cumbersome to use all these dongles and things like that. I don't really like, so for instance, the Mojo, I've got to go, you know, lightning to USB, and then I got to go USB to micro USB, and then that's getting plugged in here. And so you got this thing that you're kind of dealing with. Whereas, you know, with the iFi, you can just use a single dongle here. And again, but then you're limited to where it's almost got to be right next to the device. So I don't know. I kind of actually like, this is the cleaner system, you know, with just one. But the Mojo, I feel like, is actually more functional like this, because I have like at least a little wiggle room to use my phone with it. Really, I think probably an ideal solution would be just like a foot-long single cable. I could not find one of those though. I looked for one to use with the Mojo, and I had no luck with that. So if you know one, you know, drop a comment below, and maybe I'll pick it up if it's not too expensive of a price. That being said, let's talk sound. And you know, these are pretty competitive as far as just like use cases and feature sets. For the most part, right, these are going to be devices that you're going to want to use on the go. I wouldn't say you'd want to like be moving around town or something, or on a commute using these, but like as far as carrying this to your work and then using it, or maybe just being away from your desk and having the option to use one of these, I think is a great scenario. And I really think that both of these devices could be full-fledged, just use all the time at your desk amplifiers if you just want a clean, simple system. And it's even cool that they've got like the optical in and stuff, because then you can even use it, you know, with like your computer and a game console or things like that. So really full-featured as far as just like a portable DAC amp solution, or transportable DAC amp solution, meaning you wouldn't use it as you're moving, but you would use it, you know, once you got to where you were going. That being said, you know, there are some people that say, you know, the iFi is the clear winner. They like having all those bells and whistles, and then Chord and the Mojo have just this cult-like following almost, to where, you know, this is just like almost the greatest thing ever made, this greatest audio product ever made. Now, pricing, these are pretty expensive devices for like portable DAC amps. Right now, they're pretty readily available used, both for around $300 or so. I was able to get my Mojo for a little bit less than that. I think the iFi is paid a little bit more than that. So, but let's just call it $300. And now let's dig into, like, for the money, which one sounds better. So when it comes to sound, I really think it comes down to, I can sum it up pretty quickly, and I think that the iFi, I feel like, is more forward, and it's really trying to draw your attention to certain parts of the music. The Mojo, I feel like, takes a little bit more of a laid-back approach to things, and it's super detailed and presents things in an extremely clear fashion, but it doesn't force any particular frequencies on you. So the detail is kind of just there and available for you to access. I really felt like the Mojo was the more nuanced, more detailed of the two, but some people, I could see some people really liking the more exciting, emphasized signature of the iFi. I thought bass on the iFi was more, there was a more quantity to it, but I felt like there was more texture when it came to the Mojo. As far as highs go, again, I feel like the iFi gave a little more excitement, a little more energy, but also had a little bit more grain to it and didn't reveal as much detail in the treble frequencies as the Mojo did. For mids, I feel like that's kind of the same thing, where the iFi again kind of brings it forward, puts it right at your attention. You know, it's really emphasizing the vocals, but again, there's a bit of grain to it. I don't want to say harshness. I don't really feel like that's it, but it's definitely not as smooth or clear as on the Mojo. At least that's not my perception of it. I did think that as far as spatial presentation goes, I thought the iFi was maybe a little bit better separated because of the way it was presenting those different frequencies, and specifically adding like that kind of grain or edge to the highs and mids. I felt like I could really separate things and pick out different spaces. I also felt it was a little bit wider. In contrast, the Mojo, I felt like things sounded a little more cohesive and there was more depth to the track, but it wasn't quite as wide. So presentation wise, they both have their strengths and their weaknesses. But for me, the Mojo is really the one that on all the headphones I tried with it, which were mainly the Audio Legacy 3s, the LCD2 pre-phasers, and the OG Nighthawks. I really think, like with all of those, I came to that same conclusion of just the Mojo is more nuanced and more detailed and less in your face. I felt the i5 had a little more energy, a little more quantity of everything, it seemed like, but also had a little bit of an edge, a little bit of graininess to it. So I guess what I'm finding is that I really like the detail, but I don't want anything really forced on me. So for me, the Mojo offering kind of having all that detail there, but I have to go kind of look for it. That's really the kind of sound that I'm into right now. And so for me, I'm sticking with the Mojo when it comes to my portable DAC amp needs. But I could see a lot of people liking the i-Fi if they wanted a more energetic sound and they just liked some of the features that were built in to that thing. For me though, like the Mojo, it's a phenomenal product. Do I feel like these things could replace a desktop unit? Yes, but I do think that there are still benefits in going with, you know, a separate desktop DAC and amp. I do think you're going to get more detail, of course, depending on what you get and things like that. But right now I've got an SU9 hooked up to my Deckard, and I've got a 789, a THX 789 as well. And I do feel like those combos did outclass both of these amps. But you know, if you need a portable solution, I think either of these is a good choice. But again, for me, it's the Mojo. And I think that's gonna wrap it up, really. This was something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so I'm glad I was finally able to get my hands on the Micro Black label. And you know, if you're into these types of comparisons and you want to see more of these in the future, you know, stick around, like, subscribe, you know, maybe drop a comment down below on something else that you'd like to have me compare to the Mojo, because I think that one's going to stay in my stable here for quite a while. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.